Yes, sir.
I'm going to frame my question the same way I did for your opponent. Was it Paul Wilde, I believe is his name.
Yes, sir.
And I started by saying that I was a Republican.
Yes.
Today, I consider myself to be a conservative libertarian.
Yes, sir.
And the reason for that is that I consider Junior Bush as failed presidency.
I wish you would have been here at the beginning. That's what I said.
Fiscally, they were totally responsible, and in foreign policy, he wasn't much better than in domestic policies.
I agree with you, sir.
However, the key issue that I consider is in front of us these days in foreign policy is in the Middle East. It's not Afghanistan, it's nowhere near there. It's in the Middle East. At what stage do you consider the American Department of State has to cease to be an extension of the Israeli Foreign Ministry? At what stage do you consider the White House to cease to be an extension of the Israeli Office of the Prime Minister? And at what stage do you consider the American Department of Defense to be an extension of the Israeli Defense Forces?
At what stage? I do not see them at any specific stage. And here's my viewpoint. I do not believe that Israel is the problem in the Middle East.
No?
I do not.
You must be kidding.
Well, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. I do not believe Israel, and I've actually had a chance to review the Goldstone report, and being a military guy, all of you know what the Goldstone report is? The Goldstone report was an international report, international court that came out and picked an international judge named Goldstone. I believe he's from South Africa. He's from South Africa, and where he was put in charge of writing a report that it was about a 500 and some odd page report that was an investigation on the attacks into Gaza and Palestine. And this was during the Israeli, part of the Israeli occupation, part of the attacks, as well as some of the review went into historical background into Israel's actions in Lebanon. Here's what I will say, and it's very simple. If Israel, if the Middle East, if all the Arab nations laid down their arms, would there be war? I do not believe there would be war. There would not be an expansion of borders. If Israel laid down all their arms, would there be war? I believe there would be. The problem is and I understand what most Americans may not understand the Middle East very well, but in the military and what I was taught and what I've seen with being with the IDF, because I have visited Israel before, and understanding how they operate and use American tactics, because they use American weaponry. So as an extension of the Department of Defense, we are part and parcel. We're separate. We obviously spy on each other. But we also work very closely together. My viewpoint comes to this. If you truly want peace in the Middle East, and I'm going to ask you on this one to turn off the camera. You won't? On this one, I'm going to ask you to turn off.
Ask him to leave then.
No, I'm going to tell you what the answer is. But Bill, can I ask you a favor? He can hear my voice, but if you can stand, because I'm going to just make one comment. You can hear me. I just don't want to be filmed, because I'm going to tell you, because I'm also still in the military. So any portion, just a little bit, anything that I have to say now, because of my military title, is not an endorsement by the Department of the Army or Department of Defense. I have to say that, because I'm still in the individual ready reserve as a military officer. So I have to state that, number one. And number two, if you can still stand there for a second. Number two, I truly believe if you want peace in the Middle East, you will kick Hezbollah out of Lebanon.
Yeah.
If you kick Hezbollah, because remember, Hezbollah was a creation of Syria into Lebanon. Syria's destabilized Lebanon from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. If you truly want peace with Israel, you destabilize and eliminate Hezbollah from Lebanon, and you control Iran. And then we can truly get down to the business of a two-state solution.
What's human rights for the Palestinians? Do you consider,
Okay, now
do you consider that spaghetti, cilantro, chocolate, cement, nonsense like that are, should be prohibited items to be imported into Gaza?
No, I do not believe that, but
But you're
I also,
supporting it.
but I also believe that you shouldn't break a blockade of a nation. I do not believe that the international community, especially monitoring Israel, if you bring in food to the Palestinians, food and medical aid is very much allowed. But if you're going to purposely break a blockade, then I believe that you should have the authority to stop that blockade or stop that boat. So I do believe that. Yes, sir.
Rocky, where do you come down on the settlement building that's going on currently?
In the West Bank, I again believe that this is a Israeli issue. I believe that here's where I stand on that. Number one is, if the reality is, if there's going to be land for peace or a two-state solution, then it has to happen with both the Palestinians and the Israelis deciding it together. But of course, most people will say that Israel has the power to dominate and to put in the settlements. A lot of the settlements are created by Israelis that come from foreign countries, especially from Russia. Those settlements, I do believe, are Israeli settlements, that they should be part of Israel. The two-state solution was broken from the beginning, where you separated Palestine into two parts. As you know, Palestine is separated, and you've got Hamas and the other Palestinian Authority right now controlling two different sections. As you know, Israel has identified the Palestinian Authority as the true rightful leaders of Palestine. Hamas tends to do more civil military operations, more charity, so to speak, to win the hearts and minds of their own people. You won't have peace until the Palestinians are pushed, well, not pushed, let me restructure that word. You will not have peace until they decide to have peace themselves between the Palestinians and Israelis. We can interject as much as we want, we can, but we can't force it. And if we force it, one way or another, we will cause all-out war. And that's the problem that you've got in the Middle East.
But this was a nuclear power, not only nuclear power, also a neutron power.
Yes, they are nuclear power, but they've never used
neutron,
it.
true.
And they have not used it. And they have not used it. And that's one positive that I can point to. Yes, sir.
Speaking as a Jew, say that you kick Hezbollah out of Lebanon, that's, by the way, a workaround. If you consider the people who are the Shia fanatics in South Lebanon, okay, they are people, but it's not a thing, it's not an idea. And the only way I can see that you can kick Hezbollah out of Lebanon is to commit a war crime. So you're in favor of a war crime?
No, I don't think it's a war crime at all.
You have to
Remember,
be careful with
Hezbollah.
your language. That's what
Hezbollah-
I'm saying. That's why you shouldn't be run for secretary. Thank God you would run for Secretary of State.
No, Hezbollah was funded and created, remember,
Iran, but that
by,
doesn't mean that
not
people-
by Syria. By Syria. By Syria. Syria was the country that destabilized Lebanon
Yeah,
in the
but-
70s, 80s, and
but
90s.
They're not Syrians. They're
They're not.
Lebanese who took the money, or yeah, I mean.
Well, now it's becoming a serious problem. But the money is still, Syria will never invade or attack Israel at this point. But they will use Lebanon to attack Israel. And that's the problem you've got.
Also, you use words sometimes that can be used against you. I think in one of your something you support both the original Constitution. Now, I go along with the spirit of the preamble or the ideals of the Constitution, but be careful with your language, because you'll think that maybe 12% of our country should be 3/5 of a person.
Oh, no.
So you gotta be careful.
No. Constitution is the Constitution. We have 27 amendments with the Constitution. All 27 are valid part of the Constitution.
And you use the word original. So the bottom
That
line
is the
careful.
Constitution. As many people in Washington these days will say that the Constitution now is willy-nilly. It's a living document that you can bend and forget about the Constitution when it's a social experiment that we need to vote on. That's what I'm thoroughly against.
So what's your opinion about the